So you just performed at Bottle Rock in Napa.
I did.
How was that?
It was awesome. It's the first time I've ever performed. It's the first time in a long time I've performed at a festival, and the first festival I've done in the United States. When I first started making music, I had the opportunity to do a couple of festivals like abroad. It was, and those are actually like tented, so it felt like I was inside. But this is the first festival I've played that's like, it was open air. And I had a great time, and I love, I've never been to Napa before, but it was beautiful. But I learned a lot from that experience because there's so many new things happening. But the crowd was great, and overall it was fun, but I was really nervous. So it's just going to take some getting used to. I have a few more festivals that I'm going to be playing this summer. And I'm happy that that was the first one that I did because the crowd was really welcoming and super friendly and also forgiving because I was really, really, really nervous.
That's awesome. And I think Lollapalooza is one of the ones
Yeah.
that you'll be doing this summer.
Yes.
Do you kind of have any lessons maybe from this first U.S. festival experience that you're sort of, or like ideas you have going into Lolla that you're like excited to showcase there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I have a couple of changes that I want to make to the set, but I'm just excited about Lollapalooza. I'm excited about all of the festivals, and I'm excited about Lollapalooza because of like the history that it has, and everybody's there's so many people playing there, so there's going to be a lot of artists that I'm going to get to see that I have never seen before, so that will be great. Yeah, I'm just trying to go into it with an open mind. Yeah, it will be good.
Speaking of touring and live shows, you also wrapped up your headline tour somewhat recently. What was your favorite city that surprised you on the tour?
I didn't really have a favorite city because I think that one city that I had never been to and spent a lot, I'd been there before, but I hadn't spent a lot of time there before I started touring, and not even just like the show was great, but I just really liked Seattle as a place. I thought it was beautiful, and we got there on like a really sunny day, and we got to go down by the water and just like really kind of try the food and hang out, and people were really friendly. And then I had a great time in Detroit. I thought Detroit was really, really cool. The crowd there was crazy. But I think overall, every city was pretty awesome. I think that was probably the most surprising thing, is that how great the crowds were everywhere that we went. And sometimes I didn't get to spend, you don't get to spend as much time in a city exploring as you'd like, so that was a bit of a bummer, but ultimately I think all the shows were great. That was probably the most surprising thing. Not that I'm surprised that the shows were good, but you don't expect every crowd to be so amazing, and they were. So I don't know, that's a mean thing to say. I had that expectation. I don't know, I'm not trying to offend anybody. It was great. The tour was great. Yeah, it was awesome.
No, totally. I think that makes a lot of sense, and you never know what to expect. And what do you think was sort of one of the biggest challenges that you maybe didn't expect also, like while touring?
Maybe the biggest challenge is getting adjusted to life on a tour bus. I was in like a tour bus accident 3 years ago, and that was a really short tour, but this is like the longest period I've lived on a tour bus for, almost 7 weeks, and I didn't realize how much that affected me. That was like the first real like near-death experience that I had, and so getting back on a tour bus and like having to have dreams about it and stuff, that was like the hardest part. Yeah, just getting adjusted to living life like on the road, that was difficult.
Totally. Okay, so in your work and stuff, you often refer to yourself as a narrator, and then of course your album is titled Narrated for You. Can you sort of speak to how this idea of being a narrator guides your stories and the music you make?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was like, I just wanted to define myself in that way, just because I thought that, well, it made it easier in my music videos because then I didn't have to act in them, so I could kind of just tell the story. I'm like really not great in front of the camera. I'm actually really nervous right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. But I think, so that's one of the reasons why. But I also think that sometimes it's nice to take words that you don't necessarily hear like in the context of music and repurpose them. And so, I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter, essentially, but that's why. That was the thought process behind it.
Okay, so one of the songs on the album, Let Me Down Slowly, obviously features Grammy winner Alessia Cara, and it just feels like such a great, like such like a great duet between you two guys. How did that collaboration sort of come to be?
That came about because one of her fans sent me a message and was like, oh, she's doing promo right now and she was talking about your song. And so I tweeted her and was just like, I'm a huge fan of hers, and so I tweeted her. I was like, yo, I love your music, like, we should work together. And she was down. And she was like, hey, and I was like, we should work together. She was like, oh, that would be great. And which was really exciting for me, and I was surprised. And we couldn't organize a time to write a new song together because we were both on tour at the same time. So I was like, yo, would you want to like do a verse on this song? She was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And so she sent me like a voice note of her verse, and I was like, that is amazing. And she has the best voice I've ever heard. Ever, like on a voice note with no editing. I'm serious, it's crazy. She sent it to me, and I was like, we should just put this on the song. So she sang it in like the next week, and I was like, great, let's put it out. She was like, all right. So super easy to work with her, and she's just a good person.
That's so cool. So have you guys met in person yet?
Oh yeah. So we met, the first time we met is like when we made a music video together, and then it was her and her friend that she travels with, and then I bought them both dinner. I was like, this is the least I can do, like. And the crazy thing is that we went downtown to get food, and we walked past they have the Grammy Museum. Is it the museum, or is it just like the performance space? The Grammy Museum is downtown, and they have like all the people that have won Grammys for like just there's like 4 separate events or 4 separate awards, and one of them is for Best New Artist, and she had won. So we took a picture next to her like thing on the sidewalk, which is really cool.
Are there any other artists that you kind of have your eye on working with?
I think that I'm not sure. I kind of like it when it's kind of a surprise who you collaborate with. I mean, when I thought about it after the collaboration had taken place, I was like, oh, that makes sense, But I haven't really been thinking about it that much. I just kind of want to improve my own music. And then, if the right collaboration comes along, that would be great.
I know you mentioned earlier in the performance how John Mayer is like one of your biggest inspirations.
Yeah.
Are there sort of some other like main musical inspirations that made you want to get into making music yourself?
Yeah, I really love Eminem. I love his storytelling, and I'm a big fan of Paul Simon. I love like Leonard Cohen. I like Citizen Cope a lot. I think he's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of different types of music, but I also really like System of a Down. I listen to a lot of like rock music and stuff. So.
That's awesome.
I love Coldplay too. Yeah.
Okay, and so you grew up in Phoenix, and obviously now you live in LA. What was sort of the moment that made you want to move out here, and what was sort of the biggest shift you felt once you then were in LA and working on music in Los Angeles?
I moved from Phoenix to Los Angeles because there's like such a great creative community out here in California for songwriting, and there's a lot of labels and studios and things. But when I decided to move, my parents were like, well, if you want to go to school, or if you want to go to California, you have to go to college. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went to school for a year, and then I dropped out of school because I got a record deal. I got signed to Columbia Records, and I was signed there for 2 years, and then I got dropped. And so kind of moved back home, but luckily my parents had actually moved to California, not because of me, it just worked out that way. My parents moved to California for work, and so I moved back home, and I started playing like parking lot shows on the street in front of other artist concerts to get fans. And in like the last 6 months of 2016, I played like 170 different shows, and so I printed out like tens of thousands of cards at Staples and just handed them out anywhere I went. And then it took a long time before I really felt a shift, like, oh, is this the right decision? And I think sometimes I often, even now, like that I've been on tour and, I'm not playing in parking lots anymore, even though like I still would, I'd do whatever I had to do, but even now sometimes I have doubts. I'm like, was this the right choice? But I think when I got to meet John Mayer and like you know, the person I looked up to, and who really, he's the guy who inspired me to make music. So when he was like, you done good, you know, I was like, okay, cool, like, that's dope, because I was like, I want to be you, you know, you know. So at least, and then he said in when I was doing his Current Mood like Instagram show, he's like, you know, you're kind of like a version of me. I was like, dope. I was like, that's what I'm trying for. So then at that moment, I was like, okay, cool. This was like not a terrible decision. I think like I'm on the right path. But even then, I still have doubts. I wake up and I'm like, man, was this all right? Am I doing the right thing? Well, I never doubt if I made the right decision, but sometimes I doubt if it will really work out all the way, you know. I still don't know.
I feel like that's part of being a human, you know, no matter what we do.
Yeah, and especially in like, you know, in this industry, like everything is, you know, it can be very fickle, and you never know. Like, so I don't necessarily always feel like I'm on like firm footing, you know. I'm like, this could all go away tomorrow. It could, but that's the same with anything. You never know what's going to happen in life.
Well, so what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to someone that's, you know, maybe, you know, at the start of it, that wants to be in music but has no idea where to start?
Well, I don't really have any advice to give, only because I feel like I still need advice. You know, I'm not like I've made a lot of mistakes, so I'm not really in a position to give people advice. But one thing that I can say that's like that was very hard for me to do, which I wish I would have understood sooner, is like, you know, when you're kind of writing songs and you don't want to, it kind of feels weird to like show off your music or whatever. You don't want to like, oh, you know, check me out. You don't want to be that person. But at the same time, people can't enjoy your art if you don't show it to them. You know, they're not just going to find it magically. And it took me like 4 years to get that. And so even if it feels uncomfortable at first, show people your music, post it, even if it's not perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. Even like the music that I put out now, like even my favorite songs that I put out, I'm like, they're not ready, wait, it's not ready, you know? And I'm happy that I have people behind me being like, no, it's time, you have to push it out. So even if it takes you finding someone in your life to motivate you to just get your music out, just get it out there, because even after it's out and it's solidified, even if people like it or whatever, you're still gonna feel like, oh, but I could have, you know, if I was only, it's never gonna be perfect, so just have to go and show people and sing for people. And if people at a party go like, hey, you know, hand you a guitar and you're like, nah, sing.
Yeah, it was really cool to hear you perform Death of a Hero and a little bit about the story of meeting John Mayer and performing with him. Can you tell us just like a little bit about the backstory and then maybe just a little bit about that meeting John Mayer part?
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. I was just like sitting in my van at the time. We were on tour, and one of my friends was like, yo, wake up, man, like you gotta check Instagram, you know, John Mayer is posting about your music. And it was like, came out of nowhere, it was crazy. And then he sent me, or I had sent him a message in like 2017 or 2016, just being like, I love you, like you don't understand, like thank you for everything. And then he like saw it and responded to it, and then that was so cool. And so he invited me over to his house to do like the Current Mood, that show that he does on his Instagram, and you know, we just kept in touch since then and hung out, and he came out at my show at the El Rey and performed with me, and it was awesome. And that's the story, yeah. It's pretty crazy. I can't believe that happened. Yeah. My song Death of a Hero is about when you meet somebody that you look up to who lets you down, and you kind of realize at that moment that you're not a kid anymore and that maybe heroes don't really exist. And so what I've been saying now is that the irony about that song is that's one of the songs that led me to meeting, you know, my hero, and now I realize that they do exist. I have my childhood back, it's crazy. But yeah, that was the impetus of that song.
What's up, y'all? This is B.O.B.
This is G-Eazy.
I'm Mo. This is Julia Michaels.
This is Logic. Make sure you subscribe to the Recording Academy channel. Flex.